part of a 5-city tour to show people the new Clubman, and it is definitely in advance of its auto show premiere in Los Angeles in about a month's time. And the response has been great. So we had 3 sessions last night. These are both pre-production cars. And I'll just walk you through what we share with customers, because I do think it's still of some interest, even though you're seasoned journalists. So the first thing we start with is just where did Mini come from? Because I think not everyone is so familiar with the story. So we go back to Alec Izagonis, who was really the father of Mini. And his task at the time in the late 50s was to build a small practical car for Great Britain during an oil crisis. And what's interesting is if you go onto YouTube, you can actually find interviews of him and documentaries about Mini that were actually done by the BBC. They're really well done. And in that upper right-hand corner, that's a screenshot of a documentary that was done where Alec Izagonis is kind of sketching out his ideal view of what he thinks a perfect car should be. And of course, he's got his cigarette because he's in the 1950s. And he sketches out what British people would call a saloon, or what we would call a sedan. And he says, this is not what we want, this is grotesque. That's how he described it. And then he draws a 2-box design. So he draws a 2-box design and really says, this is an elegant design. So that was his initial idea for the Mini. And what's interesting is, when you really look at this, it actually has more of the silhouette of the new Clubman. So his initial idea was to turn the engine sideways, so the first transverse mounted engine, first front wheel drive car in mass production. And that was purely just to give more cabin space, eliminates the tunnel through the passenger cabin, tall greenhouse, and then wheels pushed to the corners. And he even said in his own words, in my wildest dreams, I never set out to build a race car, I just built this practical economy car. Meanwhile, also in England, John Cooper was building Formula One race cars at the time. And because he was friends with Izagonis and he had a relationship with British Motor Corporation, he actually brought one of the pre-production Minis to the Italian Grand Prix. And John Cooper, again on YouTube, you can see him interviewed talking about this. He says, a guy by the name of Lampredi came over and took the car, asked to borrow the car and take it out on the race course. The guy takes it out on the race course, he comes back and he said, this is the car of the future, this is an amazing car. His name was Aurelio Lampredi, he was the chief engineer for Ferrari. And I think the way John Cooper tells the story, I think that was his first indication that these cars really had a lot of potential to put additional power into and additional braking. So he was kind of the father of hot rodding Mini. So that's why we're just reminding customers of where Mini comes from, where Cooper and those names are synonymous now, but that's really the story behind it. John Cooper was also instrumental in getting us several wins at the Monte Carlo Rally. And that, I think, is the perfect example of Mini's underdog story. So the little car that beat all the V8 race cars of its day. In the next room, we actually have some booklets that go through a lot of the old pictures. And there's a picture of dignitaries giving the award for the car. And it's so funny, you have all these people, very prim and proper, at this prestigious race. And there's this little car sitting there. It's just so counterintuitive. But that racing history is alive and well today, because just less than 2 weeks ago, actually 2 weeks ago today, at Road Atlanta, we came in second place in the IMSA Continental Series, second place in the street tuner class. So we beat an Audi S3, we beat some of our big brothers, BMW 128, BMW 328, and several Porsche Caymans. So that's something we're really proud of, and that was in the pouring rain. So the car definitely has an advantage when you're going through the corners. Not as fast in the straightaways, but it always catches the other cars in the corners. So that history we're really excited about continuing. This car is exclusively built in Oxford, England. Oxford is interesting because people might not realize how old that city is. Actually older than the Egyptian pyramids. And we're built in a factory that is more than 100 years old in terms of building cars other than Mini, but over 100 years of experience. And because of that history, we do have multiple generations of families working there. So we do have grandfathers and fathers and sons that have all worked within this factory. I also love this picture because it really speaks to craftsmanship, and that's part of what we're here. That's why outside, and once we're done here, I encourage you, by that point there'll be some customers next door. You can see some of the craftsmanship people here from Miami. So we have a leather belt maker, some denim jean makers, we've got a chocolate maker, furniture maker, and those are specific to Miami. So each city we visit in this 5-city tour will bring in the craftspeople. And the theme is basically that we think there's craftsmanship on the inside of this Mini that is really unprecedented, especially when we get to the end and we talk about the price point where we're at. Even though some of the things we're talking about are optional, like the leathers, they are really of a quality that's at really the highest level within BMW Group. So we're very proud of the workmanship going in. I think the design team did a really great job on some of the interiors. This interior is actually here that we can take a look at a little bit later. And I think this interior has more connection with probably even Bentley and Rolls-Royce than it has a very rich British feel to it. As we like to say and remind people, we're the only car that comes standard with friends, so we really think we live up to that phrase. This was from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, Ohio, as part of Mini Takes Estates. Every other summer, we go with our owners cross country. On this particular trip, cross country, we had almost 4,000 people join us. And what's nice is you will never see two Minis look the same when you go through the parking lot. The owners really don't have any egos, so you have rich, not so rich, young, old, everyone gets along. It's like a big party. I can count the number of complaints in a 14-day trip on less than a few fingers. People just have a great time. And I don't think there's anything like this within the automotive segment. Maybe you might see it with Mustang, you might see it with Corvette, but not for a whole brand. So I think it's more similar to probably Harley-Davidson if you really look at just a culture of car fans. So this is about a year ago, probably more, maybe a year to 2 years ago when we were running in camouflage. You probably recognize that that's the Nürburgring, so the grueling test track in Germany. We're also tested multiple racetracks within Europe, proving grounds within the UK, and also the roads of Wales. The roads of Wales, I think, are legendary for their challenge. And I know I shouldn't show journalists a quote from another journalist, but this is just what one of your peers had to say about it. And it's interesting because he's actually, so Brandon at Autoblock is actually an R53. This is a first generation Cooper S driver. And our first generation Cooper S is that's a hard riding car. That's probably like the go-kart. So in a way, I think he would be like one of our kind of toughest critics. And in comparison to the competition, he said the Clubman's better at putting a stupid, silly, mile-wide smile on your face, and that's the highest compliment. So I'm thrilled with that feedback. We had dealers in Sweden last week driving the car. The driving dynamics of the car are still very much Mini. The engineers really focused heavily on tuning the suspension and damping rates to be specific to Mini. Under the bonnet, we have the 3-cylinder engine, which is part of Ward's top 10 best engines in the world. The 3-cylinder that comes over from what we call the hardtop, so the 2-door and 4-door hardtop. And then we bring the 4-cylinder over as well for the Cooper S. So the 3 cylinders in the Cooper, 4 cylinders in the Cooper S, and they carry over with the same horsepower as in the hardtop. From a design standpoint, if we just take a look at this car, I mean, it's got the really the familiar face of Mini. So it's got the, the headlights that we know. The car sits a bit wider, about a ½ inch wider than the Countryman, but it feels very wide and muscular. Familiar hexagonal grille. And there's other elements here, but they're all very purposeful. So these are for brake cooling on the Cooper S. And then for the first time ever in the Mini, we have this air curtain. So we have the curtain an entry point, an exit point, and this cuts down on turbulence at the wheel. So it's helping us in terms of drag and also just fuel efficiency. And what I like about this, the first time in a Mini, you see this on a 4 Series, on an X5, 7 Series. You're seeing this on much more expensive BMWs. Designer similar to the hardtop, very nice hemmed edges here. Some really nice lines that you can see when you spend some time with it. The designers always say they want you to discover some aspects of the design a year later, even when you're putting gas in it or washing it. So that's the front descending roof line, and that gives it a sleek appearance. Really nice muscular shoulders here. And if we take a look at the rear of this vehicle, we do something quite different at Mini. Typically we have vertical taillights. Now we have horizontal. Gives it, I think, a great modern look. Very specific to add the name Clubman. There's no question when you say Mini to someone, they think of a hardtop. They think about that 2-door hardtop. That's the iconic car for Mini. So we're trying to give a little more identity to Clubman. Just to give you a perspective on size, this car is 6.6 inches longer than today's Countryman. So this is the longest, widest Mini we've ever made. Versus the 4-door hardtop, it's about 10.9 inches longer than that car. And versus the previous generation Clubman, 12.4 inches longer. So substantially longer and bigger than the previous generation. We think the previous generation Clubman is actually really in the 4-door hardtop in terms of dimensions. So this really is reinvention. Underneath the car sits on the UKL2 platform for BMW. So that platform is actually shared with the BMW X1, so it has the same wheelbase and the same wide track, but the X1 sits longer, about 7 inches longer than this car. Now I want to show you...
Sorry,
yeah.
the tire is also what?
The tires, we have a 16-inch base wheel. Both of these cars have 18-inch optional wheels. Yeah, so these are... there's a little reference to that in a few slides from now. But now let's dim the lights. There's something I'm really excited to show you that we decided to make standard equipment on every car. And that is the car has logo projection. So Batman has logo projection, so we want to have it as well. So when you approach the car and you unlock, you'll get the lights at the door handles, and you'll get the logo projection. And it's funny it's fun, not funny, but fun to present this to consumers because they just, you can hear a big wow in the crowd when you show it. And this is just an example of when we're showing the car and we're thinking about take rates of an option like this, we decide to make it 100%. 100% means standard equipment for the United States. Because we want everyone to experience this. It brings a smile to your face. In terms of cars out there on the market that have it, Land Rover, the new BMW 7 Series that's just coming out now has it. I think Mustang has it. So there's not too many cars that have it. So it's just brings a smile to your face from our perspective. On the inside of the car, this is actually fairly close to the car we have here. I'll just show you a few pictures here, and then we can get inside. But really, I think the designers did a very nice job of bringing in some chrome elements here, and really just doing a nice job of integrating this indigo blue interior. And just in terms of standard equipment, so this is the first car that has an electric parking brake. So what that does is that frees up some space within the console to have a manual transmission. We still put a manual transmission into every single Mini as standard equipment. So every single Mini model, every single engine variant, it is a nightmare from a production standpoint to make so many cars with manual transmissions. Only 4% of Americans drive with a manual, but between 20 and 30% of Mini customers choose to select their own gears. This will be the first Mini that has a screen as standard equipment. So Mini Connected is our apps integration. That'll be in every single car. We think that's a great thing to get younger people into Mini. This car happens to have an optional head-up display. Rain sensor is standard, so that's perfect here in Miami when it's pouring, like today. Automatic rain sensor. Dual zone climate control is standard as well. Speaking of the automatic transmission, so the Cooper has a 6-speed automatic. The Cooper S, first time ever in a Mini, 8-speed automatic transmission, which is unique within the segment. This gives us fuel efficiency. We don't have any fuel EPA ratings just yet. Still waiting on our final numbers, but it will definitely give us power and also our 0 to 60 time and also fuel efficiency. 0 to 60 time on the Cooper S is actually faster than an Audi A3, so we're very happy with that element. This is just an example of the materials that are in the car. So this is the indigo blue Chesterfield interior. This is some aluminum trim that we have within the dash, and just shows that it's etched, so it's not a picture of etched aluminum, it's actual etched aluminum. And this thing we really love, this plaid pattern, that is in the glove box. That's in the glove box, and it's behind the cup holders within the console. So the designers are putting some amazing things, like even in places that you don't even look for it. So that's in every car. In terms of colors, we're featuring 2 brand new colors, pure burgundy that you see here, melting silver on the far side. For the first time, we always have contrast roof color available, so that car has black. This has a body color roof, which is an option. You can also do a white roof, which is a mainstay for Mini. But for the first time, we will actually allow the melting silver that's on the car on the far side, that could actually be your contrast color on this car. And this car with the burgundy and the melting silver roof is very sharp looking. And then all the other colors that you have as an option on this car. Wheels, we were talking about wheels a minute ago. 16 inches is the base wheel on the Cooper, 17 inches base wheel on the Cooper S. And as we like to say, people love nice shoes here in Miami. These are our nice shoes for the car. The biggest being a 19-inch John Cooper Works course spoke. That's probably our most aggressive wheel on the car. So a lot of possibilities. Black is a nice possibility then when you can switch out for a black roof and black mirror caps. In terms of upholstery, so we have some samples here, color samples here. We don't have it here, but the burgundy is another brand new color. This is kind of a tweed pattern that is a carryover from a hardtop cloth interior that's for the John Cooper Works. This Mini Yours interior, this black leather, is in the far car. That is the best leather, Napa leather you can get in any BMW Group product. So we're really proud of the fact that even in, let's say, an entry-level Mini Clubman, you could conceivably put that in as a standalone option. So we're not bundling the options, so you have to take multiple things. If you want to put that interior in the car, you can do it just as a standalone. And then of course our base leatherette, this is it's not listed here, but our base leatherette comes standard in the car. We're really proud of it. This has a very high take rate because people really love it. It's like an 80% take rate. And this is unique to the US market in terms of equipment. So that's just another look. You can see kind of that plaid pattern behind the console, which is a neat thing. And that was the other thing that the parking brake allowed. There's a little more room for those big cup holders that Americans love so much. The screen also gives you, the standard screen also gives you the standard armrest, and also Bluetooth audio streaming is standard in the car as well. Lighting is something that we've always taken, I don't want to say seriously because it's really a fun factor, but we always have this LED lighting on the center instrument. So we take that to the next level. This is an option called Mini Yours, and you basically have a perforated holes through this door trim. This is optional. And it runs through the full spectrum LED lighting. Actually, with a group this size, once we're done, I think we'll dim the lights again and we'll try to get